Welcome back, everyone. I've been thinking about how many of us have been waiting for a very long time for some things to come out into the open, for some things to be revealed to us. And when you look back through history, there are moments when humanity stood proudly atop its latest discoveries, building things up one on top of the other, layering theories and data. And when we observe something that feels solid and permanent, it tends to fall into the category of what we believe is true. But over time, we haven't been able to pave a perfectly smooth road. There are cracks in it. Every so often, something appears, a strange coincidence or a pattern we can't explain. And in that moment, we're reminded that what we've built can't keep the mystery out. So a lot of what exists in this world or in this universe remains unseen. And there are different reasons for that. Just like we know there are still stars in the sky during the daytime, virtually invisible to our eyes, and we even forget that they're there until it gets dark. Sometimes it's not about discovering something new, but realizing and understanding what was always there. So in this period of time, you're going to see several people begin to lose their faith. Some things are going to be revealed to us that cause people to question everything. And I'm just warning you that what they will show you will be on purpose. It will be convincing enough to cause certain people to step away from their faith and break apart their beliefs. But if you're spiritually grounded, there's nothing really that they can show you to cause you to fall away from your faith. Have you ever wondered why they keep placing the idea of dinosaurs in front of us? Since you were a child, right? And they have your children invested in this idea as well. That's just one example of something you may learn about later on, among other things. But along with that, I want to talk about a couple of other things that will demonstrate the level of preparedness you're going to need in order to grasp what they have in store for us. Because in the end, it won't be about what they reveal to us. It'll be about if you're ready to see it. You guys know Carl Sagan, right? The scientist, the astronomer. He was known through his books and the TV series Cosmos. He worked with NASA for a while, probably 25, 30 years, from the 50s up until the 80s. And through his public persona, he always maintained a level of skepticism and scientific authority. But there would be times where some of the things he talked about or wrote about had metaphysical undertones, as if he were winking at you to let you know that he knew more than he let on, but chose to keep the public grounded to stay in good standing with the scientific institutions he was working with. Because the people in those institutions will make you out to be a fool if you start to talk to the public about aliens and this or that. They will. What many people don't realize is that Sagan wasn't just a science communicator. He had connections to government and military-backed research. Early in his career, he was open and transparent about the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence visiting Earth. And in the 1960s, when they developed Project Blue Book, he shut up. He shut up about it, and they used him to get the public to look the other way by using skepticism. And yet, there are signs that Sagan wasn't dismissive in private as he appeared in public. So what changed? Well, here's what I'll tell you. During the height of the Apollo program, and this was a time when NASA was the busiest it has ever been. Did you know that probably from 1966 to 1969, they had accumulated a staff of around 400,000 people? 400,000 people. That's a lot, right? You know, working across the government, military, contractors, engineers. It was probably the largest and most expensive peacetime project in human history. And so between 1961 and 1972, all eyes were on the moon. It was all about the moon, but it wasn't all about the moon. So while the world was focused on the moon and the moon landings, they were working on mapping other planets, testing space weapons and spy platforms, developing reusable space planes, developing satellites. They were training military astronauts for off-Earth operations that they were collaborating with the military and intelligence agencies. The DIA, which was formed in 1961, by the way, and the CIA, the DOD, all those same agencies that are into aliens, right? And they had the Gemini program running until 1966. And they were sending flyby spacecraft to Venus, to Mars. But here's what they wanted to do. They wanted to send manned missions to Venus, Mars, Jupiter's moons, Saturn's moon, Titan was a target, and even asteroids with very large crews. Because look, when you spend time and money to mount a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc to a spacecraft that has stored on it audio, multiple languages, encoded images, sounds, songs, information about our planet and human anatomy and DNA, plants, animals, architecture, mathematics, and maps of the Earth's location. Plus, to go along with that, you have binary instructions on how to decode everything on that disk. You're not doing that in hopes that some random intelligent beings will come across it one day, are you?
Further than we have, they must have very advanced technologies. And I wonder what forms these technologies take.
Well, again, very difficult to estimate, but there are stars which are billions of years older than our sun. Some of them very likely have planets, and therefore I can imagine civilizations immensely beyond the capabilities of our own. What capabilities those are, no one can tell, in the same sense that even the most fantastic prognostications from the middle of the 19th century about the technology of the 20th century all fell short. People like Jules Verne asked to imagine what transportation devices people would have in 1950, imagined a kind of Victorian living room
Yes.
with plush velvet furniture in a gondola at the bottom of an enormous balloon which went from New York to San Francisco in only a few weeks. And he was, of course, the most imaginative speculative thinker of the 19th century. Others would have been more cautious. So it's very difficult to predict far into the future, even 100 years, when not only new technology, but new scientific principles may be discovered.
So far, we've been talking about contact either by radio or direct physical contact by space probes. But there might be other means of doing it. It does, I know, sound very like science fiction to talk about teleportation or thought travel. But do you think this is entirely out of the question at the moment? And if so, should we be considering it seriously?
Well, there's very little in science which is absolutely out of the question, but I don't know of any evidence which suggests that we should invest a lot of time and money on those particular ventures, although I would not oppose anyone who thought that it was a useful investment of his time.
Then what should we be doing about this research?
I would say that there are several lines of approach, all of which look promising and should be pursued further. One is laboratory work on the question of the origin of life, making the molecules which here were able to reproduce themselves and led eventually to us. Secondly, a study of the organic chemistry in places like Jupiter, comets, and the interstellar medium. It's remarkable that the molecules of life are littering the cosmos. Thirdly, the space vehicle exploration of the neighboring planets, in particular for life or life-related compounds. If it turns out, for example, that Mars is lifeless, that is not a major disappointment, because then we have two planets near each other in space and time, life developed on one and not on the other. You have the classic case of an experiment and a control. And it'd be very important to investigate why life on the Earth and not on Mars. But even more exciting would be if Mars turns out to have life, for us to investigate what kind of life it is, how similar, how different from life on Earth. That will immensely broaden the science of biology. And then there is certainly the serious work, long-term, patient, cautious investigation of other stars for possible signals being sent our way.
After all, we have made a start. And I'm thinking, of course, of Pioneer 10, which has bypassed Jupiter and is now on its way out of the solar system, carrying a plaque with a message.
Yes, that's right. Pioneer 10 is the first interstellar spacecraft of mankind, but only by accident. That is, it was designed to examine Jupiter and came so close to Jupiter that it was ejected from the solar system by Jupiter's gravity. That being the case, we thought it would be a nice idea to have a kind of cosmic greeting card on it in the remote contingency that it were at some future time to be intercepted by some advanced civilization. And so a 6 by 9 inch gold anodized aluminum plaque was designed, which has a mysterious part and an obvious part to it. The mysterious part is the man and the woman to the right of the plaque, and they will be mysterious because there will not be men and women anywhere else. The rest of the message we think is written in galactic clear, in the one language we have in common with everyone else, namely the language of science. And it essentially indicates the planet from which the spacecraft was launched, the star around which that planet goes. Out of the several 100,000 million stars in the galaxy, it specifies one, and the year of launch out of the 10,000 million year history of the galaxy. And it does it by reference to a set of galactic clocks called pulsars. Well, the chance of this being intercepted is small, precisely because space is so empty. It's traveling so slowly, even though it's the fastest thing we've ever launched, that it will take it 80,000 years to get to the nearest star, but it's not headed towards the nearest star. So it will very likely survive for billions of years, but in the dark of interstellar space.
So imagine this. I'm just saying imagine. Imagine that sometime in the late 1960s or early 1970s, a large group of individuals left Earth on a classified mission, someplace far away, and then they returned quietly without any fanfare, no parade, no interviews, no records. If such a mission did occur, an off the books journey into space, they would have needed someone to help shape the public narrative. Someone with the authority of science and the trust of the public. You see, Sagan was a consultant on many high-level space projects. He was brought in not to just inform, but to obscure. So they could use him as the filter through which we would all view space and the technology they were using. I know that even to this day, people are still debating whether we walked on the moon or didn't walk on the moon, and everyone is focused on that, while forgetting that all these other things were going on at that time. And so it's very easy to miss something there. I'm telling you, it's very easy to distract the public. How about this? I'll give you something else. I'll have to shift gears, but I mentioned dinosaurs earlier, right? So if you start looking closely at the fossil record and the mysteries surrounding these creatures, some questions start to emerge that challenge the usual story. Now, they want you to believe that dinosaurs evolved into something else modern, like birds or reptiles. But there is no evolution for dinosaurs. In other words, there is nothing that evolved into dinosaurs. They just appeared suddenly in the geological timeline and in a relatively short period of time. And then once they appeared, then they diversified into a range of other forms. It's almost like something dropped them off here. You know, there are scientists who have suggested the idea of panspermia, where life or the building blocks of life hitch a ride on asteroids or comets. Then there's the anatomy of dinosaurs. Unlike most reptiles, many dinosaurs walked upright with a posture more like birds. Some had highly efficient respiratory systems similar to modern birds, complete with air sacs that allowed for better oxygen exchange. Their eyesight was sharp, almost predatory. So they tell us. And these features do blur the lines between reptile, bird, and something else altogether. It's almost as if they were designed in a way that doesn't quite fit with what we would expect from earthbound reptiles. You combine that with mythological tales from cultures around the world, stories of reptilian gods, dragons, and serpent beings from different worlds, right? I mean, you guys can think about that if you want. We're talking about a world ruled by reptilian life forms who we only partially understand. They came suddenly and they went suddenly. This all might be a thought experiment to look beyond the obvious and to wonder if our planet's history is far more complex and stranger than we ever imagined. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to put out there at the moment. Nothing that you have to go crazy thinking about. It's just to demonstrate the possibility of how much stranger the truth could be, and how much our world would change if and when it's revealed. It also shows how prepared we need to be to discern between what are truths and what are lies. So with all that said, everyone have a great day. And until next time, friends, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all soon. Every minute of every day, your body heals, repairs, and regenerates you from the inside out. Yet everyday exposure to heavy metals and toxins builds up and blocks your body's natural abilities. Natural zeolite is nature's answer to our toxic body burden. Breakthrough sound wave technology creates the world's first colloidal zeolite. Touchtone Essentials Pure Body Extra Colloidal Zeolite helps clean out the chemicals from the body with an easy-to-use spray so you can make room for healthy in your life. Click the link in the description box below to order your supply of zeolite today, because now is the time to live your best life.